So I built this ultralight backcountry rifle, but did it live up to the hype when I got to put it to the test? That's what we're going to talk about today. What's up guys, it's Eric from Late to the Game Outdoors, and in case you missed part one of this rifle build, which you can see by clicking some link that's popping in somewhere right about now, this is my Savage 110 Ultralight in 6.5 Creedmoor. Up top, I mounted a Vortex Razor HD LHT using a one-piece aluminum DNZ mount. All in, this setup weighs 7.5 pounds, which is right in the middle of the range I was hoping to hit. But when we left the last video, I hadn't even fired this thing yet, so here's how it all went down. I mounted the scope properly, having learned my lesson with the first rifle I ever bought myself, where I estimated the proper torque and created the world's least accurate rifle. That's a whole other story of how many bullets I sent at my first buck ever, but eventually I got them down and it all worked out. Anyway, with the scope properly mounted, I adjusted the comb height, which is one of the reasons I went with this rifle in particular. I had built my own cheek riser, like American sniper style on my last rifle, and since I knew the 50mm objective on this scope was going to require some taller rings, just like the last one, I was pumped to have a stock that would allow me to swap these different comb pieces until I find the one that fit just right.
So good and tasty.
With that being done, it was time to take it out for an initial sight-in, and it didn't take that long to get it on paper, and then I decided to send 4 groups of 4 different ammunitions at 200 yards to see what the rifle liked best. Naturally, the most expensive box in the bunch had the tightest group, so that's what I decided to fine-tune my zero with. Ultimately, I got to where I was ringing steel at 500 yards, and I felt confident that this rifle was now perfectly set up and ready for the field. Now, at this point, I should talk about how amazing this rifle feels to shoot. Yes, it's only a 6.5, so the recoil is minimal. And since this rifle is a shift for me from a 300 short mag with a huge break on it, I was expecting noticeably less recoil, which I certainly got. But I was also surprised at how noticeable the difference was in terms of sound and just that concussion you feel from the bullet leaving the barrel. I felt like I could spend all day behind this rifle and just keep feeding it ammo. But that's a pretty expensive proposition these days, so I didn't.
I don't have any change!
The scope is everything I hoped it would be, and as I said in the last video, I had already fired, I believe, a total of 3 rounds through my buddy's gun with this same scope, so it's not like I was coming in totally cold with it. But man, is the difference from a second focal plane to a first a huge deal.
I'm kind of a big deal.
And on this reticle in particular, there is a tiny dot right in the center of the crosshairs. So with that scope at full magnification, you can just watch this tiny dot settle in on the center of your target, and it's just such a crisp and clean sight picture. I absolutely love it. The one other thing I'll note is the adjustable trigger on this rifle is amazing. It was pretty good out of the box, but was just like a tad heavier than I would have wanted it. I wasn't flinching too bad or anything, but just felt like I wanted the shot to break like a half second sooner than it was. And the process was pretty simple. Savage provides the tool, and there's very clear pictures in the manual to help you dial it in. I probably backed it off pretty close to halfway, and it was absolutely perfect. It's not a hair trigger, but as soon as I'm committed and I start squeezing, it breaks quick, and it surprises me in the best way possible.
Surprise!
Okay, so that's everything about the setup and the range time. How did the thing do on a hunt? Since that's what really matters, right? The first hunt I got to take this on was Idaho spring bear, deep in the backcountry. So we hiked in for 8 days of just living in the dirt, and we had 6 miles and about a 2,500 foot climb to get to our base camp. I cannot express how much I appreciated the 2.5 pounds of weight savings in this thing. Also, I hadn't really thought about this, but the shorter barrel was a godsend. This rifle is a full 4 inches shorter than my other rifle that had the break on it. And I had just become used to how far it would stick up above my pack and how I'd have to duck and dodge low-hanging branches. This thing didn't get hung up once while hiking through the woods, and it was amazing. Now, on this hunt in particular, we had the worst weather I've ever had to endure in the field. We lost a significant portion of every single day except for one to some combination of rain, snow, or fog. And all that to say, the rifle got to see a lot of weather and it held up pretty well. Now, obviously, I tried to keep it in my vestibule, keep it out of the direct weather, but it was in a damp environment all week long. So by the time I got it home, I did notice a little bit of rust starting to form on the bolt and on the receiver, which at first I was a little bit pissed about. But as I cleaned it and I wiped those areas down with gun oil, it went away immediately. It still hasn't resurfaced. So obviously it's something I'll keep my eye on, but for now I'll chalk it up to just insanely wet conditions. Unfortunately, with all that weather, our hunting time was cut by a lot. While we did see plenty of bears when we were able to actually be out glassing, we rarely had the time to make a play and to get a shot. All that to say, the one test I didn't get to put this rifle through was shooting a bear. But hopefully I'll be remedying that this fall. Hopefully you've noticed I am committed to always being super honest with these reviews, so I'm actively trying to think of negatives for this rifle. To be honest, I'm gonna have to be real nitpicky to pull that off. So I will say that the texture on the stock, it's like real subtle, but it does not play nicely with packing tape. So halfway through the hunt, I found that my dope chart had gotten wet, the ink was running, the tape was peeling off. So I immediately came home and found this dope chart / ammo holder combo, which is possibly the coolest invention I've seen in a while. So problem solved. It's called the Ammo Slicker from Alpine Outdoors or Innovations. Other downsides, I mentioned the rust, and that kind of sucks. It's not unconcerning. Again, I don't know how many rifles would stand up perfectly to weather that bad, and it cleaned right off, so I'm not all that worried. But in a perfect world, it wouldn't have happened, right? I think I'd also point out that the safety does have that middle selection where you can cycle the action, but you can't pull the trigger. There's just a lot of play in that position. So I didn't have that total confidence that I had clicked exactly into that spot. On and off, totally rock solid. It's just kind of like this no man's land in the middle that wasn't as crisp as I would have hoped. Again, super nitpicky. All that being said, at the end of the day, I'm in love with this rifle. It's light, it shoots wonderfully, it's highly adjustable and customizable for each and every shooter, and it's my new favorite rifle, hands down. I think the scope is also the best I've ever shot. I've sent a few rounds from behind a buddy's Swaro scope. I'm not gonna lie, I like this one better.
You take that back!
So, if you're looking for the ultimate backcountry hunting rifle and you don't want to sell a kidney to afford it, I honestly think you'd be hard-pressed to put together a better setup in a factory weapon than this right here. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that button right down there to subscribe. If you want to see all the gory details of that bear hunt I took this on, that film is right there. And if you missed part 1 of this build and you didn't click back before, you can check it out right over here. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next time.